adesso siamo live. Ci siamo. Grazie Stefano.
Okay. Hello everyone. Happy to see many of you here by Data Milan for the first time in the Mollie office. So today I'm gonna tell you a Mollie story that started 1.5 year ago, which consisted how we landed building an internal framework called GaaS to create a production-ready GenAI solution in Mollie to enable our teams across the company with this groundbreaking technology. So my speech gonna touch why we built GaaS, how it works is going to be the core point of the presentation, and what we learned along the way. Hoping to inspire some of you. Maybe you are facing some type of challenges like ours in your company, or maybe just for your own personal projects. But before we dive in, just a quick word about me. I'm Stefano. I joined Mollie in January 2025 in the Minecraft. I work in the onboarding domain, where my primary focus is developing machine learning solution to solve specific problems related to integrity risk detection, merchant business classification, and also GenAI solution to enhance the onboarding flow of our customers. I'm a big fan of tabular data problems, but also quite enthusiastic about how GenAI can be embedded in our decision processes. I have most of my career was focused in the banking sector. I started as a quant, developing pricing problems with traditional techniques, but also with the ML ones. And then I smoothly transitioned towards a data science career. Happy to connect with some of you later during our aperitivo. So let's start. I wanted to start this story by giving a quick snapshot that probably can look familiar to some of you, especially those working with ML or data problems. I think that at the beginning of 2022, of course, for ChatGPT release, we are seeing a flood of requests from different stakeholders, teams, maybe also your manager asking for an AI solution to their problem. Of course, AI is everywhere today. We see here a snapshot that could represent an internal chat in a company. There are a ton of people asking, for example, an LLM or an agent to solve their task, like customer feedback translation. Mollie operates at European level, so we deal with different languages. There is this guy asking for an AI agent to summarize something. Of course, here agent, it's too much, but yeah, these type of requests are common. And also we have the last one related to extracting structured information from unstructured sources. And of course, I'm not crazy to leak any internal conversation. It's just me writing random stuff for this presentation. I mean, GDPR is also part of European data scientists. So jokes aside, I think these are interesting use cases that poses actually challenges to every ML teams that need to deploy these solutions. Why? Because we are seeing many requests. Some of them are simple, others are too complex, but actually there are many. So we have different use cases that needs to be solved in a strategic way. And it's something that we were dealing in Mollie because we have many of them. And we wanted to reach a good scalability with a framework that allows us to focus on all the peculiarity of use cases without losing too much time in delivering them in production. So we needed a framework that was robust, of course, but not too rigid, so that every person can focus on the right thing in developing the use case. And of course, the core idea that we wanted is that the framework should be rapid to set up, which means that basically we want that the process that goes from idea to production should only take a few days. That's the core. And how we land, what we decided to build, it's something called GaaS, which it's not something that can catch fire, of course. It stands for GenAI as a service, and it's a monorepo that it's able to abstract all the MLOps side related to developing and deploying a GenAI solution. And this is done by centralize in a unique standardized REST API all the use cases in a clever way. So just to give you a diagram of how GaaS works, basically think about it as a central hub for GenAI use cases. So the name as a service is crucial in this part, and it's not just fancy to get the GaaS acronym, but basically we mean that with GaaS, the generative capability is a system. It's not one-off script for a specific use case. So you can see here in this diagram, basically we have GaaS that hosts multiple use cases divided into domain, and each external client application can reach GaaS to get the dedicated response to their need and access to the GenAI capabilities. This is done, and we will see later, by structuring GaaS reflecting the same way our company is structured. Mollie is divided into domain. You can think domain like a business division, like onboarding, monitoring, finance, etc. And this is reflected in the monorepo. Each domain can host multiple use cases, and all these use cases shares the same common layer. Utilities and tools for file handling, PDF, but also audio file, images, etc. And of course, the core part is the LLM integration layer. One thing to mention, this project started 1.5 years ago. So there were many options there, many LLM providers like GPT from OpenAI, Gemini, and they have their own peculiarities. Gemini was multimodal by nature, OpenAI at that moment, no. So we wanted to experiment with different LLM providers. So it's pretty important to implement an integration layer that is able to handle all these LLM providers. And also, one thing that we want is that to switch from an LLM to another should be pretty quick, so that we can experiment and see which is the best one for the specific use case. So how did we do that? So let's look at the building blocks of GaaS. So the first part, of course, is the LLM integration. You need something that it's abstract, a common interface to chat with your LLM provider. So we define an abstract class here, LLM, that it's able to handle abstract concept of prompt, because today LLMs can handle not only text, but also images, files, as I said before. So we want to have an abstraction also to the prompt that here is called the prompt component that can be of different types. Here we see text, image, and also Google Cloud Storage path. The core part of the LLM will be the send request method that takes as input the list of prompts. So it's pretty straightforward integration layer so that we can implement a well-known software engineering design pattern, which is the factory. In this way, we can just switch from an LLM to another one by simply changing the name in a config file. So if I need to experiment with Google Gemini or Anthropic, it's pretty straightforward to do that. And it's pretty interesting how we achieve that. And of course, you can implement your custom LLM. Maybe you are hosting something special in your infra, so it's pretty straightforward how to implement in GaaS. But the most important part, and it's something that every developer in GaaS is going to have a look at, is the concept of use case. So we want to represent every problem handled by GaaS by this standard interface that implements abstract method that should be every time developed by the developer. So we have the constructor, the init, that initialize all the objects that are needed for that specific use case. And this is done by a config file, which every time you need to change something, you just modify the config file, and the code directly understand what's changed. Of course, we're talking about a standardized REST API, so we need to define the input schema and the output schema of the use case. And then the run method, which is where all the magic happens. So if you have a complex, simple use case, all the implementation will be done in the run method. So you can implement whatever you want. Simple LLM call, LLM interaction. Maybe you need to extract information from a file or also a MP4 file. So you need to use different LLM models. So it's something very custom for each use case. But how we translate this class to endpoint? Basically, we wanted this to be as frictionless as possible, so that every developer focus only on the run method of the use case, and all the MLOps side is done automatically by the repo. So the solution was simple, but I would say clever in the sense that we define a register use case decorator that you need just to define at class level, specifying the domain and the use case name. And this is then is used for define each router for our fast API object. And if you need to get access to this endpoint, you just need to send a request to the base URL / domain name and use case name. I know that these are many information probably, and you are not understanding probably the real power of GaaS. So I think a good way could be to do a live coding session together and check if we are able to build a GenAI use case together. So let me stop the sharing here and share instead my VS Code. Okay. So, business problem. I want to, we have here a PDF file containing, which should represent a financial statement document. And I would like to extract some metrics, some KPIs from this document. We are trying to simulate a situation of a finance department that needs to extract for tons of financial statements structured data. So let's build it. But since I have not so much time, I decided to vibe code it because I think that the powerful of GaaS, it's not only the concept, but also how we structure the repo. And it's structured in a way that today it's pretty straightforward to vibe code a use case, but not because it's, of course, the LLM that is going to be used, it's powerful. I will use Cloud Code 4.5, but the structure of the repo provides the right context to develop the use case. So let me copy paste already prepared prompt. I'm too lazy to write live, so let's have a look here. Please create for me a use case, and the use case specific will be like this. The name is financial statement KPI extractor. The domain is going to be finance, and the use case input will be the Google Cloud Storage path of that specific PDF file. And the output, yeah, I want operating costs, revenues, profit, and the type should be float. As LLM model, let's use the fastest one, Gemini 2.0 Flash. So let's run it. What is going to do? I'm expecting that the agent is going to have a look at the structure of the repo. You can see here that directly decided to visit the use case.py file, which contains the abstract class we saw before. So he understands directly that this is the standard to implement. And of course, it had a look to some already implemented use cases. The fact that there is the presence of other use cases enables the agent to understand how are the best practices to implement a use case. So you read the use case of, we have here finding generator. Here is a use case for our audit department. Basically, it's going to generate automatically slides starting from a finding. Yeah, not so happy use case, this one. We have a Slack customer feedback translator. Yeah, so what is going to do here? Let me check how LLMs handle PDF files. So is reading how these use cases are handling files, for example. Okay, I have a good understanding. So let's see what it's going to do. creating 6 to-dos, perfect. So let's see. Okay, nice. It understood that it needs to create a new finance repo because it's missing. So we see here that we have a new finance repo, which is going to represent our finance domain. And there is inside the financial statement KPI extractor, which is one of the requests. Okay, it created the init.py and also the schema. Let's have a look at them. Okay, so the input schema of the API is going to be the GCS path, correct, something that we wanted. And then here, the output schema will be operating costs, revenues, and profit. Amazing. We have also here a prompt. Nice. We see, I think it's written well structured, I would say. So instruction, read the financial statement, respect everything like the 1,000, how they are written. Nice. The config file, so here is where it said that we just need to change a config file if we not want to switch from a quicker model like Gemini 2.0 Flash. If we need something with under steroids, we can use Gemini 2.5 Pro. It depends on your use case. We have in production use cases that are called thousands of times per day, so maybe you need something fast, or but we have also those that are that needs something which much more capabilities. Okay, it created the new use case class. So let's have a look how it implemented it. We see the financial statement KPI extractor. There is the decorator here, correct. We see that defined the input schema, output schema, created the LLM factory, nice. Yeah, the LLM method using the LLM factory that use the config file model name to initialize the LLM. We see the get parts of the prompt. We see here from component for the instruction, and here it's going to send the GCS path where the file is stored. Nice. So let's see if it works. I'm gonna set up the API port 1000. UVcorn, it's not running. It's not working. Missing argument up. Okay. Yeah, there is a. Maybe it needs to do something more. Let's see. We can see here if it's something missing. No, I would say no. Config, schemas, use case. Okay. Maybe I have no. What's the problem here? I swear it was working. Every time it goes in this way. UVcorn, it's UVcorn. You're right. I'm missing the app. I'm main is GaaS app host port 8000. Yes, thinking a bit. So, but I trust the LLM is going to work. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Matteo. Amazing. So we can see here that, yeah, I'm not sharing the entire screen, but basically we have our endpoint live. We can see here, for example, that there is the language detection. Probably he's here under the hood. The password. Okay, but let's check if it works. I hope so. If that nothing is missing. Okay, I sent a request sending that file to this endpoint, and we can see not found. Nice, amazing. I just need to probably here, yeah, forgot to put here from financial statement, import all, and here, because it's missing from finance, import all. Should work. No, it's not here. But, OK, I am prepared to this. I have another branch. But basically, it should work. You check out correct use case. OK, so yeah, I need to, but OK. Yeah, no, delete all. Don't save. OK. OK, let's run here. And here, basically, it's the same. We have the finance KPI extractor, which is working. And we have, as schemas input, GCS path. So basically, if we run it and we send the endpoint, you see that it's working. And here are the outputs. So yeah, it was pretty quick. Sorry for for the bug, but yeah, it's the beauty of being live. But let's get back to our slides. I think that yeah, it was missing an import file in that moment. So let me stop here the presentation and go here. Nice. So basically, I wanted to demonstrate how quick it was to implement a use case in this framework. Of course, I completely failed to make it running, but yeah, you saw how powerful it is to, in a matter of minutes, to create from scratch a new use case. I think that what we learn is that it's pretty important in this type of scenarios that if you need to implement many use cases in your company, I think that the monorepo approach is a win-win approach. Why? Because with standardization, we are able to scale. And if you do it the right way, by abstracting the MLOps complexity, you are able to implement in a quick way and serve to your stakeholders a GenAI use case that they can quickly insert in their system, and you can get the GenAI capabilities at the right moment in your process. And another point that we would like to underline is that we saw currently with the vibe coding approach, the concept of documentation is critical. And I think that we learned that also the structure of the repo, it's part of the documentation. If you are building something that is named correctly with the correct structure, you are providing the correct context to the LLM. So that to vibe code a new use case in GaaS, it's pretty quick and effective. So you saw it's pretty simple to implement, and every time there is something simple, it's because there is a team behind GaaS. I wanted to thank all these people, these folks here in this slide, but especially Gonzalo, this guy who built the MLOps abstraction. He did a great work, and all the GaaS contributors can implement in a quick way and in a seamless way a new use case across the company. So thank you all also for attending this. Questions?
Thank you. There we go. Vai, Ste. Ste asks.
Yeah. Stefano to Stefano.
Nice.
Nice talk. I have a few questions. The first one is, I saw you submitted a request to the model saying extract the financial data.
Yep.
To do that, did you preloaded all these models with any context, or any data, or any info, or you're just using the LLM?
I'm just using the LLM in this case. Actually, I use as an example Gemini 2.0 Flash, which is multimodal by design. So it's able also to handle multimodal inputs. In this case, I directly sent the financial statement PDF to the LLM. It was a simple document, but if you need to do something more complex, you are dealing with complex and big files, probably you will need to implement your use case run method, a chunking strategy, for example.
I'll take the occasion for another question.
Yeah.
Which do you use this GaaS for any coding thing? Did you ever try to, like, rather than yourself developing coding, you ask LLMs and agents?
So, well, GaaS is designed to provide generative capabilities as a service to to our stakeholders. So basically, the right use case for GaaS, it's something that can be embedded in another system. At the moment in Mollie, we use for coding support GitHub Copilot, which is pretty effective. Okay. But GaaS, it's born for solving that small type of use cases, but also biggest one that. If you use the compound effect of solving many of them, you get a high return on the investment of the framework. Yeah.
Great. Well done. Any other question? Oh, yes.
Nice talk. Thank you. And first, I have two questions. I like this. The first one. So, how do you validate use case? I mean, the accuracy in some kind of metrics, etc.
That's an amazing question because I didn't have so much time. But basically, in the repo of GaaS, as you see, we are creating classes. So, for validating our classes, we use valuation datasets that are specific for each use case. So, we need to work with our stakeholders, defining which is the evaluation dataset that is going to provide the metric that we want. And inside GaaS, there is a vertex pipeline folder where we define all the experiments so that we can track, for example, with MLflow, all the experiments we are doing. For example, you want to see if Gemini is better than GPT. You just need to change the config file model name parameter, run 2 experiments in Vertex, and we get in our MLflow UI hub all
use cases.
Yeah.
Nice. And second question, could I ask the second one? So you tell us that you have a monorepo, and how do you manage all the PRs? So you have new use cases, and how do you approve them, and then how do you remove them? Because I believe that some use cases have to be removed in some time.
Nice question. Also, this one actually, at the moment, we have more than 13 use cases implemented in GaaS across 7 domains. And actually, how we handle it, it's pretty simple because as you can see, inside the monorepo, there are small projects. So every developer, every data scientist, MLE is going to work on that specific project. So the repo, the subfolder of that specific use case will never have conflicts with another use case. So actually, at the moment, the development flow is pretty smooth because we have not so many. Actually, I think there are no conflicts at all at the moment. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, yes.
So maybe I also have 2 questions, but I promise I'll be quick. So I was just wondering, maybe I missed that part, but how do you ensure that, I've understood the part where you create schemas and make sure that certain types are returned on the API level. I wasn't too sure how you ensure that from the LLM side, in a sense that, for example, like you said, okay, these are float, these are float, these are float. But one, I'm not too, I don't know if I understood it so well, if the LLM you specifically define to say that please return in JSON format or something like that, that you would return it. And then also if somehow LLM decides that they didn't manage to do that, for example, then, for example, it cannot return a flow if it didn't retrieve anything. For the first question is that one.
Amazing question. Also this is all handled in the send request interface. So basically, as input, it takes not only the prompt component list, but also we are sending to the LLM, which is the output schema that we are expecting. And also we can set a number of retries, for example, 3, 4, it depends on how many times you want to perform a retrial to get the correct answer from the LLM. If all these retrials are failing, we will send a failure request to the client on the client side. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think time's running out, so yeah, I'll keep it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi. So nice talk. Just wanted to ask you if you also have like an infrastructure as code component of this. So after you are done with the LLM config and use case configuration, do you also like bootstrap the entire infrastructure from code as part of the GaaS framework or not?
Yeah, of course, there is a CI/CD pipeline that surrounds GaaS. Basically, it's handled by our MLEs. And what I can tell you is that this type of service at the moment is served in Cloud Run. So in that case, it's all managed, the scaling part of the infra. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Dai, one last question.
I have a question. I know it may sound a bit provocative, but
Go for it.
when you started the project 1 year and a half ago, there wasn't much about frameworks for building agents. Now, time has passed. We have a lot of options to build agents. So if you have to start this project again today, what would you do differently from that point of view?
That's an amazing question, also this one. Actually, there were frameworks when we started, when the team started. Actually, I was not there when it started. But the problem of frameworks is that sometimes there is abstraction and complexity on the objects that you need to manage. Sometimes there is too much complexity in terms of dependencies. And 1.5 years ago, most of the frameworks were too immature, so that the API interfaces sometimes changed suddenly. So it's a lock-in that it's risky. And for solving this type of use cases, we decided to follow a tailored approach. So defining our framework, it was the best solution. Nowadays, there are promising framework, and at the beginning of September, we had an ML offsite with all the craft, where we tested different frameworks like NA10, Agentic Crew AI, for example, ADK from Google, and we saw some promising frameworks. I think NA10, it's interesting, and also the Google ADK is also a promising one. But for our problems, GaaS, it's behaving in a perfect way because the development phase is smooth, and also to run the experiment in such a repo, it's pretty quick. So to select another framework should satisfy all these requirements that we have. At the moment, it's still doing well, GaaS. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much once again, Stefano, for your